TikTok, it's time to rock. It's the Sunday show, ladies and gentlemen. We're on time a little bit. It's only because we were just doing a little few things behind the scenes. We were just double checking, to make sure that we really honestly had Slash's Axel here next to us. Looking good, bro. Looking good. And we also had Brad. We were also making sure, weren't we, Rock Professor? Was that Brad? Because he's had a bit of a tidy up too, hasn't he? He's scrubbed up for the camera today. Look at that.
Yes. Some of the worst mistakes I've ever made have been haircuts, but I had a fight with the lawnmower this week and it won. So yeah.
It won.
You look
looking
good.
good. Looking
both
good.
of you look good. Simon and I, we're the steadfast pillars of the show. We're just looking like we always do, granite-like. Granite-like.
Always look good. It's hard for myself and Carl to live up to you guys. We try so hard.
Oh!
Look at us. Look at it.
Oh my
We're the
gosh.
alternative Mount Rushmore, aren't we? The alternative Mount Rushmore.
Something like that, Rock Professor. And I've got to tell you too, ladies and gentlemen, in the green room, we were lucky to have Brad play Welcome to the Jungle as well. So that was fantastic. And you need to tune in for next week's show, part 2, because we're going to talk a little bit more about the guitar that Slash used, the amps. We might have a special guest talking about Duff's bass rig. And Brad will talk a little bit more about gear for the gearheads next week. But this week we're going to do side 1, aren't we, Rock Professor, of the album? And we're going to just talk a little bit about our own experiences with this album because it's such a landmark album. Before I kick that off, Rock Professor, we've got 14 people watching us. Do you want to do a quick roll call before we kick it off?
I do. Yes, let's say good morning to everyone in the chat. Let me see. Scroll back up to the top. So I've got Phil, John, ZD351. Good morning, John. Hope you're good. Alan Toll. Morning, Alan. Tim Thomas. Good morning, Tim. Charmaine Taylor. Good morning, Charmaine. Hope you're well. Got scrolling down. Brett Zeppelin. Morning, Brett. Hugh Caldwell. Morning, Hugh. Hope you're well. Up in sunny Scotland. We've had Christopher Live Sour as well. Good morning, Chris.
Hey, Chris.
Hope you're well. I think everyone who's comment right now. So thanks, guys. Morning, all. Welcome to the show.
Awesome.
And I hope you're all good.
So I know that Brad has done a bit of an intro, so we'll leave Brad to talk about that. But I think what we're going to do is we're just going to go around and we're going to talk about our own experiences with this album, ladies and gentlemen. I want to make one thing clear before we talk about this album. We've got to do a bit of a warning here for people. There could be swear words in these next shows. Especially if we're going to be talking about the lyrical content of these songs and how these songs were written, and because they were signposts of the late 80s. So we will be swearing in the context of the show. And Brad, I think we also need to talk too, because there was always a little bit of controversy around the album cover, the original album cover. So we're going to talk about the album cover and the controversy of that as well. So we just want to make that clear too, that we're only talking about this purely from an educative perspective, Simon. We're not doing this because we want to invite controversy.
100%. 100%. And it's very important we do talk about it, Andrew, because it's a big part of this record and why it's a landmark record. So as we dive into it, you're going to hear how many record sales it's had since the day it came out. It's a lot.
Yeah. Well, exactly. So I'm going to kick off with my thoughts, and then I'm going to pass it over to Brad, and Brad's going to give you guys probably a little bit more of some of that background stuff. We're really lucky, ladies and gentlemen, to have Brad and Carl especially join us on the show, because I've worked with Carl and I know how important this album is in Carl's legacy of listening to music over the years. And we all know we've had Brad many times talk about the influence of this album on him and his guitar playing over the years too. So we certainly look forward to that. And obviously everybody else that's involved in the chat as well. Everyone else is a fan. But for me, Simon, this album for me was a landmark. It was an album that was just unbelievable. It was an album that didn't sound like anything else that I was listening to in '87. And one of the reasons why I found out about this album, and Carl knows the guy, at our local record shop, we had a guy called Cookie work there, and he mentioned this album. He mentioned this album that was coming out. He said, "Oh, look, you got to get this album by this band called Guns N' Roses. It's great," because he knew that we were Stones fans, and there was a bit of a connection there between Guns N' Roses and the Stones that he had heard. So I got the album, got the cassette, was blown away by it, was absolutely blown away. And then not long after that, Brad, late at night here in New Zealand on a Friday night and a Saturday night, they used to play videos. So if you came back to the pub a bit pissed or whatever, you could go and switch on the TV and you can watch some videos. And it was Sweet Child of Mine. That was the video that came on. And again, if you guys aren't familiar with the video, I think all of us are, but go and look at that video and situate that video and just compare what that video was in 1986-87 compared to everything else that was on TV, on main record charts back then. It was just completely Brad, unbelievable. Your experiences, bro?
The very first time I listened to this album, I was oblivious to anything else other than what was played on the radio and MTV at the time, and I had this cassette given to me on an audio cassette. I had a Sony Walkman. I put it on at school. I didn't have a lot of friends at the high school I was at, so one of my friends who went to a different high school, best mates, he put me onto them, and he said, Luke Foley, he said, go and listen to this band. They're unbelievable. And I'd heard them, but I'd never really paid much attention to them because I was stuck in the 70s and the 60s. I didn't want to hear any 80s music. I wasn't really at the time into 80s music. I didn't really get it. I didn't understand 80s music, the hair metal and all that. So when it came on, I put it on, and the first thing I heard in my Sony Walkman, I remember those yellow Sony Walkmans?
Yep.
For the cassettes? I put that on and I listened to Welcome to the Jungle, and I was at high school, and I swear I think I might have even skipped a class or two to listen to it from start to finish, and unbelievable. It changed my life. It changed who I am as a musician. I wasn't even playing guitar at that time, but it became part of my DNA listening to that record. And, so much so that I spent the last 15 years playing Guns N' Roses tribute band called Appetite for Destruction in honor of it. So that's something that I spent the very first years of playing guitar sitting and learning note for note everything Slash played. I sat there and would sit, and I mean, we're not talking about YouTube days and days of CDs where you could, or on WAV files, you can actually just pick a second. I had to rewind audio cassette to get back to that section to do it do it again. I wore out videos, and I wore out audio cassettes of this. So back in 1987, I was in year 7 at high school. I wasn't into Poison. I wasn't into Bon Jovi. I wasn't at the time. I like them now, but I wasn't into them.
Yep.
I loved Led Zeppelin. I loved Jimi Hendrix. I loved the Doors. I loved the Stones. I loved the Aerosmith. But then all of a sudden, this was like my 90s band. It was like the biggest thing I could connect to. When I listened to them, I heard Slash playing, and I thought he was like Jimmy Page of the 90s. That's how I sort of saw him through the 90s. I saw him as the melodic player, the one that did all the right things at the right time, not trying to be flashy. I mean, think about the era. Everyone had pointy neck guitars and hair out makeup, and these
this
guys.
This guy was playing a Les Paul.
This guy come out with a Les Paul, you
Yes.
know, and immediately I was attracted to that. The tone and everything like that. And we know it wasn't an official Gibson, but it was a copy, which we'll get into at some point. But the whole thing was for me, without repeating myself, the minute I pressed that audio cassette on my Sony Walkman, it changed my life.
Before Carl jumps in, I just want to back up one remarkable point that you made. They were a conduit between the bands that I was listening to. Like you, I was listening to the Stones, I was listening to the Beatles, I was listening to a lot of this old stuff, you know, Deep Purple as well. I wasn't listening to terribly a lot of, you know, modern stuff. So when I heard this band, I couldn't believe it. It was like, this is a modern band sounding a little bit like this music rock professor that I was listening to, you know, that was 10 years prior, you know, so instantly there was that attraction there for me. I know, Carl, you and I have spoken about that many times too. Do you want to add something?
He doesn't.
Spinning wheel of doom.
He doesn't want that.
Yeah.
We'll give him a couple of seconds, ladies and gentlemen. we'll give him a couple of seconds. But I just want to make. He's going to jump back in. I think Christopher Live Sowers made a great point. I think nothing can top what they did in '87. I'm going to go on the record and say, yep.
Yeah, it's amazing because they came out with this swagger, this attitude and aggression and a punkness, but they brought classic rock back a little bit. They weren't going with the fads of the tapping, the finger tapping, the whole thing that was happening at the time because of Eddie Van Halen. They decided to just stick to, pardon the pun, their guns and be who they wanted to be. And I think they did that.
Hey,
well.
Get in.
Do you want to tell us about your experiences with this album while we... no, here he is. Here he is.
He's coming back.
Carl.
Is he coming back?
Carl.
The spinning wheel of doom.
Carl. You're live, brother.
I've got a black screen.
Carl, you're live.
Oh, he's frozen.
Okay. All right, you tell us. You keep the show moving ahead, Rock Professor.
Yeah.
If that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's fine. Interestingly, I have a completely different perspective on this, and I was thinking about why. I was 30 in 1988. Yeah. Now I was looking back and I was thinking to myself, I don't remember this. I don't remember it being around. And I'd have a look. I look at UK charts and I was like wondering what. And it basically didn't do top 20 until 1989. 2 years after it was released. It didn't in the UK. It did not. And clearly there was some singles. It was probably on the back of singles that it did that, but it didn't. In the UK, it kind of meandered about in the 70s or the 90s or whatever, but it wasn't in the UK. It was not a big album, I think, until maybe, I don't know. I can have a look and see when the singles were released, but my guess is that off something like, I don't know whether it was Paradise City or Sweet Child of Mine, but that clearly it got a bit of a boost into the, you know, and made the top 5. But it was very much in the UK, and I was looking at this and wondering why that it wasn't it was in the mix, but there were, you know, it was released in the same year as Thriller was. You know, I mean, in the UK, Thriller was just massive. It just dominated everything by miles. And I think we've talked a bit about on here before, with the way that music kind of, you know, the UK had gone off in a bit of a different direction. It wasn't kind of so closely linked to America in the way that it had been in the past. And I think, you know, there's a lot of stuff that appears in the UK charts that I think doesn't appear in other charts, a lot of it. So my experience of the album is, until recently, until we've been listening to this week, I mean, I probably listened to it at the time, but it didn't impinge on because I was 30, it doesn't impinge on my conscience in the same way it did with you, Brad, you know, and this is my Led Zeppelin 4 to your, you know, it's the same thing, you know, because that's when I was 14. I heard physical, you know, that's when it all came out. That's when I heard it. That's part of my DNA. This is, you know, 15 years later, 18 years later, whatever it is. And it's just a different thing. And it becomes, the singles become in the mix of, you know, generally what's happening in music, and you hear it on the radio. And in 88, I was like 30. So I was just starting my career, doing what I've done for the last 30 years. And we just bought a house, and we just, you know, kind of getting to that kind of domestic thing. And so I didn't particularly listen to it at the time when it came out, because it just wasn't very big here. You know, it didn't make a huge splash. Clearly later it did make a bit more in 89, but it'd been all out for 2 years by then, hadn't it, as an album. So it's been great to go back and listen to it properly, and listen to it with, you know, to be honest, fresh ears for quite a lot of it. I don't have any particular memories of the, you know, I mean, I remember the major tracks, of course, but some of the other stuff I don't remember hearing. I'm sure friends of mine had it at the time, but as I say, it was just mixed in with a lot of other things, and didn't have particularly. I mean, what was I doing in 1988? Probably, yes, listening to other things, really. So it sort of didn't impinge on my conscience in the same way. So it's been great to go back and listen to it over the last week. You know,
awesome.
Lots of times driving around in the car. Well, I still do the same thing as you guys were doing. I put it on in the car, drive around. You know, I do a lot of driving. The taxi of Dad does a lot of driving, but you know, and it's been fantastic to drive around, and as you say, have that kind of, you know, you can see the influences, you can see the kind of punk mentality, the sort of classic rock, the classic rock influences coming in, and kind of joining the two things together. And as you say, not part of that hair metal American rock thing so much, really.
No, that's a good post. Thank you, John, because I was having this conversation with another friend. So we got Sweet Child of Mine here was the first video they played here in New Zealand, and I've just been having a conversation with Chris about that. Then they played Welcome, and then not long after, Brad, they, the world went crazy for Paradise City, and then I think every second song on New Zealand, on that New Zealand video program was Paradise City, you know. But yeah, we were a little bit different here. We didn't have the record companies dictate too much what the state broadcaster was playing. A little bit like the BBC back then, or even to this day. I think I think the BBC determine their own policy. They play what they want to play, don't they? So,
well, they have. Yeah. Oh well, they have a kind of, yes, they do, and it's not. You know, there's lots of famous stories of how to get on the Radio 1 playlist and things. ZZ Top had a promoter for ZZ Top delivered Mexican food to the playlist meeting by having a crane and raising it up, banging on the window. The broadcasting house.
Okay.
Promotion. Fantastic.
I'm just getting some messages from Carl. I think what we'll do is we'll crack on. He might join us with some rankings. I don't know what's going on. So we're going to change the sequence a little bit, ladies and gentlemen. Brad's going to continue if he's got any introduction stuff to talk about. Then he's going to kick off the tracks, followed by the Rock Professor, and I'll come in third. We're only doing the first side of the album, ladies and gentlemen. So just bear with us. And at some stage, Brad, give me a yell when you want me to flick through some of the picks too, because we normally do that at halftime, don't we?
Yes, 100%. Well, I'm happy to kick on with a bit of an intro. I've got quite a bit to get through, so I'm going to try and do it as promptly and quickly as I can.
Thank
so
you,
we're
brother.
not hitting 3 hours, because I
Hey, Mash.
I thought to myself, with an album that's, a big part of my life and something that I've spent 15 years playing the music of, I should probably do something decent as an introduction for it.
Yeah.
At the time, I culled it down. And I made it, as flowy as possible. But I'll just take a drink of water before we start. All right, guys. Appetite for Destruction. Arguably one of the greatest debut albums ever released, and definitely one of the greatest rock and roll albums of all time. You can put this album up against any Led Zeppelin, Deep Purple, Black Sabbath, Van Halen, Aerosmith record, and it definitely holds its weight. Guns N' Roses were a young, hungry band at the time and basically lived with homeless people and strippers to survive. The attitude of the band reflects their environment and struggle. It was recorded January 18 through to June 23, 1987. It was released in July 21, not about a month later, by Geffen Records. Now, Geffen Records is a big company back in the 80s and 90s, people, so just remember that.
Huge.
Yes, exactly. It had little mainstream attention in 1987, and this backs up a little bit what Simon was saying. It wasn't until 1988 that Appetite for Destruction became a commercial success, which is after the band had toured a lot. Airplay of the singles, Welcome to the Jungle, Paradise City, and Sweet Child of Mine helped the band peak at #1 on the US Billboard 200 and became the 7th biggest selling album of all time in the United States, as well as being the best-selling debut album. So that's amazing. I mean, this is really, when you think about it, a band that released an album and it takes almost like a year and a half or 2 years to get some momentum. And it actually gets to the point where it sells over 30 million copies worldwide. And it's also one of the best-selling albums of all time. Now, originally, critics weren't really drawn to this album. But Appetite for Destruction has received retrospective acclaim by rock stars, musicians, fans. Even critics have gone back and commended the album in saying that it's a masterpiece. And a lot of those people that originally weren't into the album have come back and said that it is a masterpiece. So it's quite funny. So never believe what critics write. That's what we say on this show, right, Andrew?
Correct.
So what became the classic lineup of Guns N' Roses, which is Axl Rose, Duff McKagan, Slash, Steven Adler, and Izzy Stradlin. That is the classic lineup. There was a few lineups leading up to that, including Tracy Guns on guitar. Slash rounded out the classic lineup that we all know so well. The group signed to Geffen Records in March 1986. In December of that year, the group had to release something to appease the record company because they were actually thinking that the band didn't have any material, didn't have enough material to write a full-length album. So they planned to go into the studio and to actually appease the record company. They released a 4-song EP called Live Like a Suicide.
Correct.
It was designed, obviously, to keep that interest alive in the group while they withdrew from touring in the LA club scene, because they toured and they played a lot in LA. They played all the time. A number of producers were considered for the album, including Matt Lang, who was apparently more expensive than the budget they'd received for the album. Spencer Proffer, who produced Quiet Riot, Nazareth guitarist, and originally Paul Stanley from Kiss was put his hand up to do it. but apparently he wanted to change too many things. He wanted to remove rack toms from Steven Adler's drum kit and make too many changes, so he was ultimately rejected. So come full circle, and ultimately Mike Clink was chosen, and the rest is history as far as I'm concerned. So Mike Clink was a big part of this record. The basic tracks were recorded in 2 weeks. Back in 87, you got to remember there was no such thing as Pro Tools. So what you hear on the recording is raw energy. There's imperfections, and that makes the album so amazing to me. You can hear the energy, the rawness. You can hear little glitches. You can hear the things that these days get too polished, in my opinion. These are the things that make an album amazing. Mike Clink had a tedious task. He worked for 18 hours a day. He spliced together the best takes with a razor blade, and Slash would come in overdubbing his parts in the afternoon, and in the evening, Axl would come in and record his vocals. We'll get into a little bit more about the gear, but during these sessions, Slash really struggled with his guitar sound. He ended up with a Gibson Les Paul copy. It was designed and built by Chris Derrig. It had Seymour Duncan Alnico 2s in it, and he used a Marshall amplifier. He spent hours of Mike Clink, structuring his solos and putting parts down. The total budget for the album was $370,000. You've got to remember that's a lot of money back in the 80s there, so the late 80s. Steven Adler said his drumming and percussion was done in 6 days. Now, there was no click track used on this record at all, guys. So think about this. The intro of Sweet Child of Mine, there was no click leading Slash into it. So he had to guess where Steven Adler came in. So I'm going to leave you that thought in your mind for anyone who records and record with a click. You can come in at the right time and make your way to when the drums come in if it's our intro. But because Slash went and overdubbed all these parts again to redo them with his guitar tone he was happy with, there was no click track. So you can imagine how long it took him to nail that intro, to get that intro where the drums come in. It would have been a tedious task, that alone. I'm sure they probably had to. What's that, Simon?
Saying that they didn't use a click track to record it with.
No click track on this because
you saying that they didn't use a click track to record?
No click track. Because the tempos fluctuate throughout the whole record. On each song, there's some songs speed up gradually and some slow down in parts and speed up. But I think that's what makes the album amazing, in my opinion. But yeah, so that basically Axl Rose took a lot longer than he intended to doing vocals. He insisted on doing one line at a time on particular songs. Yep, he was a perfectionist, and it pretty much the rest of the band started to go away from the studio at that point in time and let Axl take his time to do the vocals. And maybe that was probably a wrong thing by the band, but at the time they didn't realize that might have created the Axl Rose that might have broke the band up later. But who knows? Axl has his demons, and obviously a lot of the anger and angst and everything in the lyrics on this record are Axl getting that out. So he had a turbulent upbringing as a child. So we won't get into that at this point. But the final overdubs and mixing were done at Media Sound Studios, and mastering was done at Sterling Sound, New York City. Many of the songs in Appetite began as solo tracks that the individual band members had wrote separately on the band, only to be completed later by the band. So for example, Izzy would come in with a song idea, and then they would mash it together, and it would get stripped to pieces and put back together as a band. So that in itself, like Think About You was a song that Izzy had written. He come in and they stripped it down, pulled it to pieces and put it back together, and we had that masterpiece on the record. Most of the songs reflect the band's personal experiences and daily life. Welcome to the Jungle, some of the lyrics that Rose wrote that after he encountered a man in New York City shortly after arriving from Indiana in 1980. And the man was told to him, you know where you are, you're in the jungle, baby, you're gonna die. So I think Axl has that that homeless man that he encountered to thank for that song.
Yep.
Mr. Brownstone, which is about the band's problem with a drug. Am I okay to say it, Andrew, or not? The drug.
Yeah. We've already did the caveat at the beginning of the show.
So I'm trying to keep it as clean as possible. But yeah, it was about their problems with heroin, which is a thing that was a bad thing for the band. The lyrics to some of the songs focus on the band members' younger years, like Out to Get Me, focused on Axl Rose's constant troubles with the law as a youth in Indiana. So that, like I said, he had a turbulent upbringing. So that those lyrical content was surely something that made this album so aggressive. In the week of August 29, 1987, Appetite debuted at 182 on the Billboard charts. Several months after its release, it had only sold about 200,000 copies, and Geffen was about to walk away from the record. Radio stations originally didn't want to play the band's single Welcome to the Jungle, nor did MTV want to air it on its music videos. After several months of lobbying the network, Geffen general manager Al Corey convinced MTV to play the video just once a night for 3 nights. Welcome to the Jungle became the most requested video on MTV after that. Corey pitched to the radio stations while sending them promo copies of Welcome to the Jungle, Paradise City, and Sweet Child of Mine. With the radio and video airplay, as well as the band's touring, Appetite managed to top the Billboard charts on August 6, 1988, a year after it had been released, which is unheard of. It spent 4 consecutive weeks at number 1, a total of 147 weeks on the charts. That's a lot to take in, guys, but it took a year for this album to take off. Slash, he quoted,
it's interesting you should say that it took a year because and that's true. Just to give a little bit of some more background to that, the band went to Donington Castle, didn't they? They went to Donington Castle, recorded that, and then in between coming back, they had no idea because they were slowly taking off. Or was it the other way around? When they went to the UK, it was one, and they just had no idea. In between, it took the band to fly over the Atlantic. Brad,
Yep.
they went crazy. People went crazy. They came back and was like, all of a sudden.
Yep.
What happened?
Yeah, no, you're right, Andrew. 100%. 100%.
They would have played Donington's a music.
Yeah.
Music,
well, that's where the film
heavy hard rock music festival.
Yeah.
And one other point, though, that's really interesting about that Donington thing, and I didn't know this until years later when you become a bit of a fan and you read some of this stuff a little bit more. So when the band are recording and playing at Donington, Brad, they weren't even like popular. They weren't even like an international band then. That was just them doing their thing, bro. And when I found that out, I went back and looked at it again with different eyes.
I know. The footage is remarkable, and they
sorry
used.
for interrupting you.
No, I'm glad I like this. I like having a little bit of interaction in this intro because it makes it a bit easier for me, to be honest with you. Slash said they thought they'd made a record that might do as well as, say, Motorhead. It was totally uncommercial. It took a year for it to get on the charts. No one wanted to know about it. In September 2008, the album was certified 18 times platinum by the Recording Industry Association of America, having shipped over 18 million copies in the US, making it the country's 11th best-selling album ever. Billboard in 2008 also said the best-selling debut album of all time. That year, Sky News reported that the album's worldwide sales would be ultimately 28 million copies, making one of the best-selling albums of all time. More recent figures have shown it to be over 30 million worldwide. I'll talk a little bit about the album cover. The controversial album cover was based on Robert Williams' painting Appetite for Destruction. It depicted a robot rapist about to be punished by a metal avenger. music retail stores refused to stock the album with this controversial cover, and you can see why, obviously. So they ended up replacing that image with the Celtic cross and the skulls of the 5 band members on the outside, and they put the other image on the inside of the cover so that the retail stores would put it in their shops on their stands. The band has stated the artwork is a symbolic social statement with the robot representing the industrial system that's raping, polluting our environment. So they were a little bit environmental maybe with that sort of comment.
Get your heart out, Greta.
So
can I just interject with something? Hold on, Brad. Just one. You talk about Paradise City. Paradise City was filmed at the Giant Stadium in New York, where they were touring with Aerosmith and Monster Rock Festival at Donington. So they kind of combined 2 different gigs together. But not their own audience, despite the film.
No. So to be a little bit different, the band didn't want to release an album, 2 sides of the album being labeled side A, side B. They decided to release it as side G and R. So the first 6 would be side G, and they would deal with drugs, hard life in the big city, which was the gun side G, and the remaining tracks composed the side R, which deal with love, sex, and relationships, which is the Roses side. So they wanted to have the album like vinyl, G and R. So you've got a contrast of what they're doing there. Another thing that I found interesting in Axl Rose stated that the original idea for the album cover artwork was to be of the Space Shuttle Challenger exploding on the cover of Time magazine in '86, but I think Geffen refused it and saying it was in bad taste.
Yeah,
so
it wasn't going to happen.
No, but that was an idea as well. So I thought I'd mention that about the album covers. On this particular record with the mixing and mastering, for people who are into mastering or recording or any of that sort of thing, you can really hear, or if you're just really interested to hear what parts Izzy's playing and what parts Slash are playing rhythm-wise, if you pan hard left, you're hearing all Izzy Stradlin. Pan hard right, you're hearing all Slash. Any spill that comes across that Slash's parts onto Izzy's side are usually an overdub or a lead guitar part. Look, I'm going to say it like this. It's easy to put 5 of the world's greatest musicians together, but if there's no chemistry, the music will be sterile. With Izzy, Duff, Slash, Adler, and Axl, there was an undeniably strong chemistry that was going on, and they were more than a supergroup, in my opinion. They were ultimately blending punk, rock, classic rock, and blues together, and they created some amazing songs. And thank goodness we are blessed with this life-changing album. Certainly changed my life after the first listen. So I'm going to say it here, and hopefully at least one of these band members might hear it. Thanks, Slash, Axl, Adler, Izzy, Duff. Thank you for this album. And thanks, guys, for allowing me to present this album to the show.
No problem, bro. Thank you for your wonderful intro. I'm just a little bit sad that we don't have Carl here. I don't think we're going to have Carl on the show, which is a bummer because I know that he's a Guns N' Roses nut and he would have just given us some wonderful insight. But your intro is fantastic. Before I chuck it over to the Rock Professor, I just want to add a couple of little things to what Brad has said. Read Slash's biography. Read Duff's books, his 2 books. Read Stephen Adler's book. It's fantastic. And also read a book called Reckless Life by Cantor on there as well. It's a wonderful book. I just want to just talk about one thing that really sort of interested me over the years, guys, and we spoke about this with the Derek and the Dominoes album. There was this impression that these guys were smashed and stoned in the studio when they were recording this album, this urban myth thing. No. They were there. The producer made them come into the studio. They were on time, Brad. They were there. Slash was doing his overdubs for hours, and as Brad said, Axel was doing vocals line by line. They certainly went and partied afterwards. No one's not denying that. But it's a little bit like the Derek and the Dominoes thing, where some reporters have said, haven't they, Simon, that they had bags of cocaine on the control panel, and they were rolling joints in the studio. They weren't doing that. This was a band at the time. They knew that they were doing something. They knew, Brad, I'm convinced of it. They knew that they were recording something. And they were young enough and professional and smart enough to at least dedicate themselves to doing that for that album, Simon.
I agree. They were hungry, Andrew. They were hungry. They were, they were struggling. They were hungry. They wanted
Simon
to.
frozen.
No,
Simon. We can't.
I'm all right.
Oh, okay. All right. So sorry for interrupting. Sorry. Yeah. No. I thought we were having.
I haven't frozen here. Neither of you. No.
Okay.
Only you.
Sorry, Brad.
All right. I reckon we should get into the ranking of the songs, gentlemen.
Yeah. Everybody that's jumped in, you guys know who you are. We won't shout out to you guys because we've already done it, but we'll do a shout out at the end. You guys are awesome. You want to kick off the first track then, bro?
Yes. Wow. The epic classic, Welcome to the Jungle. I mean, that amazing intro. The first time I heard it, the guitars just sounded so fresh and so raw to me. It was so refreshing to hear them sound so good. That Axel scream at the start, you have to really imagine what it would have been like to listen to Axel in the studio doing that. But I reckon he was pushing himself to the point where I reckon his voice was almost ready to fail in that very intro scream alone. The bass is so punchy in this song. The drums are just incredible. The soloing sounds tough as nails. That Slash and Izzy interplay, the way they complement each other so well, that's something that you could tell that they knew that they had something special going on, those two as guitar players. They knew their place. They did their thing. Izzy plays a lot of licks. Slash and Duff would hold that rhythm section tight at times, and then Slash would go off and do his little things. But it's such an amazing way that they played together, and this song really highlights that. Axel singing with so much aggression. That first guitar solo, it's sleazy. Slash makes it sound so effortless. It almost makes me sick to my stomach how effortless he makes it sound. It's easy to play the notes. It's hard to put that feel to it. When they get to that, when you're high, you never, that middle section bit, it's like a breath of fresh air. We've had this aggression that's been pounding us the whole way until that section of the song. And then it lightens up with the G and the D chords. When you're high, you never want to come down there. And it builds up that scream from Axel into that second solo. It's amazing. And this is timeless things we're talking about, That second solo, again, it leads itself to being sleazy blues to me. It's killer. The breakdown, that frantic bit where it's got the bass line, this and the deal, Izzy doing the unison bends, Slash with the slide. That's incredible, that part. Then when that comes to an end and the band explodes back into the chorus again. Let's put it this way. The first song on the record, it's epic on all accounts. That last line, it's gonna bring you down. Yeah. And the way the song ends is just epic. I can't say enough about this song, and I never, ever, ever get sick of listening to it. I give it 100 out of 10. Never skip it.
Oh, fantastic, bro. Fantastic.
Straight in with the Brad score.
Yes. Rock Professor, do you want to take the next ranking, please? Because I don't know if Carl's going to jump in.
It's all right. We'll carry on regardless. Yeah. I mean, clearly very well chosen opening track. It's got that. I mean, it's interestingly the very beginning bit is that very kind of 80s kind of echoey guitar, isn't it? Just that's very that for me in my head pegs it as an 80s record with that kind of 80s guitar sound. I mean, it's the things that struck me. It's really dense, isn't it? There's a lot going on, a lot of stuff going on. There's many guitar tracks. Can hear lots of guitars, double track guitars playing the riff. You've got also the thing that I don't think anyone seen really many is the sort of harmonies, the singing. There's multi-track singing going on. I don't know whether it's all Axl, or whether the others are doing it as well. But I was struck by the kind of the multi-track singing, harmonies, and on quite a lot of it, quite a lot of the parts. That was really cool, and I think that's worth saying that. Clearly they didn't just let Axl just do a vocal take and pick the best one out, cut them together or whatever. And there's clearly some more thought put into it than that, along with the rest of the production. It's got that huge drum sound as well, isn't it? That huge kind of that's not a $200 drum sound, is it? That's a $50,000 drum sound for sure, which is huge. And I think it does a lot of things, doesn't it? This track, it's very strong. It's got a fantastic riff to start, classic riff. It sets the tone for the record, doesn't it? It really, one song, it says what this record is going to be about. Nails it, the sound, the fury, and the content of the record is set out in this first track, and it's definitely a 10 out of 10. Never a skip, and is me. I'm big on on track listing and how it programs out and stuff, and I think that this does everything you'd want from an opening track. Sets the tone, sets the content, sets everything about it. The attitude, that sort of punky attitude, lined with the sort of the rock thing from the 70s, Aerosmith, and the Rolling Stones. We'll come to that later. And all those things. Absolutely 10 out of 10 and never a skip. Andrew.
More on Izzy coming, Mikey. Absolutely. We're going to be talking about Izzy a little bit, if not later on, but certainly in part 2, because he is a big part of this album, and we'll talk more about that. So thank you. He is the songwriter. And what Brad said, if you guys didn't catch the G and the R, the side 1 versus the side 2, the contrasting between not necessarily the music, but certainly the subject matter is really, really important. So only real Guns N' Roses fans know that, and Brad has given you guys the cheat sheet to being in the insider of the Guns N' Roses club. Thank you, bro, for doing that. Carl might still jump on. He's determined to jump on. Look, Brad, you've said it. It's a high-octane rocker, isn't it? And what really, really grips me about this song is the lyrics and the way that Axl sings. What kind of rocker is going to go, knees, please? Come on. When you think about that in a rocker, it doesn't work, does it? But knees, please. It makes it work.
Isn't it? Uncanny.
Yeah. Here he is. Look, put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen, for Axl. Are you here, Axl?
Oh.
Not having a good day.
And we can't.
Okay, all right.
Oh, no.
Okay. I'm glad you're here. I'm going to give my rankings for the first track, and then you're going to give yours and talk about it. So glad you're persistent. And the rock professor mentioned it too, obviously, you know, the vocals. There's nothing like it. There's nothing like what this guy is doing in 1987, ladies and gentlemen. That's the key that I want you guys to remember. Not in 2023, not after 30 years of listening to it. What was actually being played on the radio in 1987? This guy was just, Brad, he was on the moon. He was on Mars, bro, with his vocals. And rock professor, no one else is doing the vocals. All the vocal layering, all the tracks
It's
are all done.
It's all him, is it?
All done. And
Wow.
we'll talk a little bit more about this with the gear. Tune half a step down to take into account the different vocal timbers that Axel loved to use. And as we go on and talk about some of the other songs, we'll understand a little bit more. Brad, you've given this a Brad score. Talking about Axel's vocals, when I first heard this album, and the second and third time I heard this album, Brad and Carl, I thought different band members were singing. You got to remember, we didn't have the internet back then to tell us, actually, you know, that it was just one guy. Brad, you know, we didn't have, you know, when you listen to this and a couple of other songs, not, you know, even the next song, it's like, you know, must be the bass player singing. And then someone says, no, it's the same guy. It's like, okay, because people don't sing like this, and then they'd sing like that. It's just people weren't doing that. I, too, have given this a Brad score. Someone mentioned also the video where Axel jumps off the bus with the piece of straw out of his mouth. That's cool.
The boy from Indiana. Yes.
The boy from Indiana. And yeah, you know, if they had got Izzy to do that, it would have been fortuitous. It would have been like future telling. Brad score. Carl.
Hey, sorry guys. Some time, so I'll keep it brief. So we're can you hear me?
Yeah.
Your internet is terrible, Carl.
Yeah.
Well,
can
for
you hear me?
His internet is terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go on.
Carl.
Was it Carl?
Carl.
Poor Carl. He's frozen, Andrew.
Go and reboot your Wi-Fi, Carl. Go and reboot it.
Poor Carl.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are trying. If one thing Kiwis are, we're persistent as fuck.
Andrew, there. I will say this though. Axel sings most of the BVs and everything, but there are some songs where you can really hear Izzy sing and Duff. There are a couple of songs like that.
Yeah.
Not on that, but like Brownstone. There's definitely Izzy on that one and things like that. So.
Yeah, sorry. Exactly. In regards to this song, as far as I know, There are, and you can certainly hear Duff. But as a general album, though, at the time, though, we didn't know. So, for example, the next song, when you talk about the next song, it's remarkable. Do you think that's the same guy? You know, back in '87, we didn't think it was.
No.
Okay, is Carl back? No, he's gone. You want to kick off the second song, bro?
Yes, okay, no worries. Well, you know, straight after we get told it's going to bring you down, it fades out, and then we hear this amazing intro. This bass comes in with this energy. The drums come in, sort of going. It's just this energy from somewhere else. It's something that's undescribable. The drums come in. It's explosive. Slash and Izzy have their rhythm guitar parts down on this song in particular. So tight. They play so well together. Axel sings incredibly on this song. BV's a whole lot. It's a tough riff. It's aggressive. The chorus, and that pre-chorus bit and the chorus bit is so easy. Nothing seems to please me. That bit, it's like breath of fresh air, and then it comes back in aggression. And I also forgot to mention, love the cowbell, by the way. Love the cowbell. Bring the cowbell back to rock, please. Stephen Adler had it right. You know what I mean? Slash, his guitar solo in this song, it's all aggression. He's not trying to play perfectly. He's not trying to show virtuosity or anything like that. He's just playing for the song. His solo is aggressive. Sounds incredible. Aggressive lyrics, fits the music perfectly. The outro solo is killer, where Axel keeps insisting it's so damn easy. And look, it's a short song. It's like a second song that just knocks you in the guts, in the chest, and then it finishes. Look, for me, definitely another 100 out of 10 for me. It's a killer track. It's a killer track. Simon.
Yeah. According to some research I did, that it started off as McKagan and a bloke called West Arkeen. They wrote it originally as a kind of hippie song, song, and but Slash's decision to turn it into a rock song. McKagan said that Arkeen taught him about alternative tuning, leading to the song having a more distinctive sound. With that saying, without open E tuning, that song wouldn't have happened. So I guess it's an open E tuning. I couldn't particularly tell myself, but apparently that's what it is.
I think they changed.
As you say, it's got that tremendous kind of.
Yeah. It's definitely
quite a lot. Yeah.
Standard tuning, half step down. That's it. That's this album.
yeah, for sure. Yeah. But you're right. That the kind of this is the punky bit, isn't it? Coming in, this is the punk element that you feel coming through really strongly on this. But again, that kind of that minute thing where they do that breakdown, it's got that big kind of chorus guitar, that very kind of 80s chorus guitar but still they're all about, it's the contrast, it's having that chorus guitar after a minute that is a contrast to the aggressive kind of, as you say, all out playing that they've done up until then. I wrote down, it doesn't sound like Axel. Who's singing? Yes. So taking your point, Andrew, about I thought, blimey, is that somebody else singing? Doesn't sound like him at all. But anyway, apparently it is. It's so again, those multi-track guitars at the end as well, fantastic. You can tell a lot of work's gone into this, and a lot of so a lot of thought. I think it's very easy to get, as Andrew said earlier, get dragged into the mythology of the drugs and everything else. But clearly musically they were very together, and lots of ideas, and putting them together. And of course, in the late 80s, you had the ability to make an album with lots of tracks on it, didn't you? There's lots. You could have many guitar tracks if you wanted them, because you had many tracks to fill up. And I think one of the things I'd say about this whole album is that it's a very dense album, isn't it? I mean, it is very dense. It has that kind of, I think that certainly this side particularly is that denseness, that kind of, that full-on sound is very much the kind of, the sound of the city, isn't it? LA in the late 80s, kind of, almost kind of overload, sensory overload that I got. And you listen to it all the way through, it's quite exhausting. It's like dizzy by the end of it. I mean, it's, I found it, better to listen to one side and then the other as a break, really, between the two things. 9 out of 10, never a skip. Great second track, and again, setting the tone for what's going to come. Andrew.
Awesome. What wonderful contributions. Look, Brad said it, that bass riff, ding, 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 ding. It's like, oh my gosh, and then this guy comes in singing the song, and you don't know who it is, when we've spoken about that, and this is that mystique. This is one of the great things about this band, but Brad, that we love. You know, you can't quite work it out. And I'm glad, Simon, that you mentioned also this grittiness that this band's got. You certainly capture that grittiness. And I think the fact that they're great songwriters themselves individually, but also collectively, and also reflecting back what was happening on the streets of LA at that time, it's a remarkable thing that a lot of bands can't do, and a lot of acts haven't been able to come close, and they captured it with this album. And you believe it. It's believable by the second song. I'm hooked. I'm into it. And again, you've got to remember this. You know, this is a band singing songs and delivering slogans. And then the next album comes out and they've got slogans on there as well. The Rock Professor mentioned it, guys. You know, there's a post-punk element there. And Brad mentioned it in his intro with Duff coming from a punk rock perspective. So his containment isn't being contained individually. He's spilling over and bringing this sort of punk attitude into the band too, clearly. And he talks about that in his book, doesn't he? He's proud of the fact that he's introducing this aspect. And that punk rock attitude is summed up, and I said it to you, ladies and gentlemen, at the beginning of the show. I gave you a bit of a caveat, and that's why I said a swear word before when I was talking about Carl, because we've already said it. We've already warned you that we're going to be using some swear words here. But this lyrics, look, I see you standing there. You think you're so cool. Why don't you just fuck off? Yeah, you know, so when you're a young guy and you're hearing that, it's like, and you're drinking, it's like great, Brad, you know, so that's all you're singing, you know, and you're waiting for it. You're with your mates, you know, and and everybody knows that line.
Yep.
They know that line because
Look at Andrew. Yeah, he's been waiting. He's been 3 years to do this, isn't it? Oh, look, I can swear on a show legitimately. I'm going to read out the lyrics, especially the ones with the swearing in them.
But it's that attitude.
Nice one.
It's that attitude that they just capture. You know, anyone can go and record a song telling people to F off, can't they? You know, anyone can do that, you know. But being able to capture it with this great music, this electricity, this high-octane feel, Brad, and hooking you in, it hooked me in, still has, you know, 30-odd years later, I just can't believe it, you know. Look, you know, this is a perfect album, ladies and gentlemen. There's not going to be any surprises as far as scores go. This is a 10 out of 10 for me too.
Andrew, that lyric that you said, I won't repeat it, so we're not swearing all the time. But my son, you know, as a young lad, even now he's a pretty respectful little boy. A young man, he's 15. He doesn't swear. He used to go, "Why don't you just rag off?" and I won't go into it too much, but because we might do a show on the MTV special live at the Ritz. But but when MTV aired it, they used to beep out all the swear words. So my son, he'll go, "It's so easy, it's so easy." He sings that.
He beeps.
He used to. Yeah. Anyway, now he gets so damn easy all the time.
Self-censorship. Anyway. Well done.
So you know, also you know, the whole thing with my son being a big Guns N' Roses fan, it's just like progressional. This band is just going to be there forever, I think. That's I never said that in my intro, but I thought I'd make mention of that. But
no, thank you. That's what we love. That's what we love about ranking this album or any album, don't we? It's that personal connection that we have, and you know, obviously everybody's putting their comments too in the chat about their personal reflections and connections to this album. Put them in, and I'll highlight them.
Well, Andrew, what I might do is I'll do the next song. Maybe you can show a few pictures. What do you think?
Yeah, you do the next song. Yeah. Sounds good.
Yeah. So the next song on the album is Nightrain. There's something about this song that creates an instant amount of energy. You know, I've had the pleasure of playing all these songs. We've done shows where we've played, like the Corner Hotel that say Hoss played with his Van Halen show. We played there and did all of Appetite from start to finish, went off, and then came back and played Use Your Illusion stuff and all that, and Lies and stuff like that. But we did it as an anniversary thing. And this particular song is just incredible to play. That cowbell intro into that A chord, well, the E flat A chord, unbelievable. The guitars in this song, the way that they start with the Slash is playing the unison chords and Izzy's playing the single note melody on the recording. So if you pan left, you hear Izzy playing single notes, and on pan right, you hear Slash playing chord inversions, playing the same thing. It's incredible. The way they did this is so good. The drums, I think the rock professor mentioned this earlier about the drum sound. This particular drum sound they got for this record is incredible, really, for the songs. It brings the songs to life. And Steven Adler's drumming on this song in particular is incredible. The bass from Duff, he holds this down so tight. He's a very tight bass player. I don't know if he's underrated or not, but I think he is. I think he deserves way more credit for being an incredible bass player. This is one of my favorite songs by Guns N' Roses. I love the verses. They got that great vibe that's energetic. You can tell they're hungry. It's got that aggression to it. The chorus, Axl ramps his voice up from the verses are "cars are crashing." He's doing that sort of voice, and then he goes into the he's got that sort of same vocal as what I was saying is "It's So Easy" in this song. In the verses, "Wake up late," he does that, and then he goes into the choruses like "I'm on the night train," doing all that stuff that I can't do. No one can do it like him, he just had an incredible voice. The way he sung on this record is incredible. The guitars, the sounds. I mean, come on, guys. That if you love Les Pauls and you love big body Gibsons and that, it's got everything you want on this. It's got everything you want on this song. You can't sort of knock it down. Then you've got the first guitar solo. It's actually Izzy Stradlin. It's panned left. So he plays the it's very Stonesy, very blues feel. Izzy's got a particular style within himself. I don't know. I watched Izzy Stradlin on his Izzy Stradlin Juju Hounds.
Hounds. Yeah.
Yeah. I saw him live in Parramatta in a small club, and he plays just remarkably well, just very bluesy, very Chuck Berry, sticks to that box, that Chuck Berry box, and off he goes. They're very Stonesy guitar solo. And then the second solo that comes in and kicks in, you can immediately hear the tonal difference as well as the panning, but it does bleed over to Izzy's side where, interestingly, Izzy's solo stays to the left. Mm-hmm. It's I don't know why they didn't pan it to the middle, but it's kind of cool, so it's Izzy. The second solo is unreal, like that solo that Slash plays. And he does those unison note things and everything, and it's just such an amazing feel he has. The drums, Steven Adler, he's loud and proud in this. You can see they nicknamed him Popcorn Adler because he used to bounce on the stool like a popcorn being cooking. And you can see him, if you've watched live at the Ritz, you can see him playing this song in the recording. It's you feel like you're in the room with him. That's just but if anyone dominates on this song, it's Axl Rose. He sings incredibly well. Lyrically, it's tongue in cheek, but and it's about real life stuff and buying alcohol called Nightrain liquor. It was, it was cheap liquor. That's what they got. But then you got that incredible outro guitar solo. There's so much dynamics in it. His playing is clean and clear. He's so dynamic. His tone is remarkable, but his playing is clean and clear. I don't know if he gets enough credit for this guitar solo on the outro. It's such an incredible bluesy feel and tone he's got. And Axl singing over the top of it. It's remarkable. I'm going to give this one the top score of the day so far, 1,000 out of 10. It's definitely never a skip for me. And it was always one of my favorites, and it is one of my favorites to play on guitar in Appetite for Destruction. Love it.
Well
I
done.
mean,
Stop
haven't-
reading my notes. It's at the Rock Professor, but you bloody reading my notes, bro.
Yeah.
Rock Professor.
We have a question. Greg Roberts Tunes says, "What's a unison note?" Good question.
Unison note. So that when you're doing, so there's two different ways to do it. When you bend a note and play one underneath it, so you've got the unisons there, and then you when you're playing two notes together and things like that, you're getting them unison together and doing, I guess for lack of better words, triads, but less one note as well. So, but the classic unison thing is playing two notes together where you bend one note up and play the other note fretted, and they go within unison, but one bends up to the note. If that makes sense.
Yeah, Chuck
Well,
Berry. Think of Chuck
You've got a
Berry as
guitar
well.
behind you. Show us.
I don't know if I actually explained that properly, but that's yeah.
Brad, you've got a guitar behind you. Show us. Apparently, there's a guitar behind you.
I don't know if I got it still plugged in, but let me see.
I don't know. It don't have to be plugged in. We can hear it on the.
That's
I
it.
see.
So you're playing that note up, so you play them together. You can hear that.
Yeah.
Oh.
Hey, no, I'm on top. That's more like it.
Sorry about that.
No, thanks for doing that, Brandon. That's really cool. I understand. Yeah. There you are, Greg. It's learn something new.
I hope
Fantastic.
that helps.
Yeah, it does. I like those little things. Just show us. And that's a perfect. I understand completely what you're doing. It's really good. Yeah. Yes, it's I must say I don't have much to add to what you talked about on this track. The cowbell, of course, more cowbell. Yes, and those, I made notes too about the dual guitars and things. Again, making references you did, Brad, to that kind of. That's where I feel like the Stones thing is, that dual guitars playing is a kind of quite a Stonesy thing in a Stonesy way, and that guitar harmonics as well. And great solos and things over the back end of it. I give this 8.5 out of 10, but never a skip.
That could be a timeout, I think.
It could be. It could be.
I'm taunting you from the sides.
Yeah, taunting. Brad, look, I got to agree with you. I think that solo, the way that the solo follows the lyrics, is again a remarkable thing. It's not, I don't know the technical term for it, but the solo follows the way that the guy is singing. Axel is singing. It's just remarkable. Another clever little piece of musicianship from this band. I'm glad also that you spoke about the outro solo, because the outro solo, I've made a comment here, is epic. It's one of the most underrated guitar solos, I think, in Slash's canon when people talk about his guitar work. But I too have pointed that out and noted that. Also, the guitar solo, it's clever because there's two different tones going on there. Now, is that, Brad, because the two different guitarists, is Slash playing and then is he playing some of the solo, or is that because Slash is playing a different pickup?
So the first part of the solo is Izzy. So when it does the the first part is easy when it goes to the
Yes.
Yeah, that's all easy.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. Then Slash is
Bum, 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 bum. Yeah.
that bit's Slash, yeah.
Okay. Don't play anymore. Don't play anymore because Guns N' Roses are notorious for blocking videos. So just.
That's why I didn't want to play in this episode. I shouldn't have done that. Sorry about that.
It's okay, because if worst comes to worst, we can just edit that little bit out. But ladies and gentlemen, you got a little piece of gold there, because if you go and have a look
It's
at
quite
them
generic,
playing the
very
song
touching, isn't it?
live, you'll see that. You'll see that they are into. But I wasn't sure whether or not that's what they actually did in the studio. So thank you for confirming that. And as the rock professor said, we can't deny or underestimate the influence that Izzy as a musician brings into that band, into this band at that time. Let me just go to my notes, bro. Again, interesting context with the lyrics, because Brad said it's about going to the liquor store to buy some alcohol. No, Brad. It's about kicking the girlfriend out. Take your credit card.
No, it's going to the liquor store to buy. No, I said that the alcohol they were drinking at the time was called Nightrain.
Okay. All right. Okay. So okay, and just bear in mind, ladies and gentlemen, we gave a caveat. We're not displaying misogyny here or anything like that. We're just merely talking about a song where a guy is saying to the girlfriend, besides, you ain't got nothing better to do. Yeah. It's just great lyrics. I just think it's a remarkable, what's the word? It's a remarkable record for that ability to talk about ordinary things in an ordinary way and just make this song about it, Simon. It's one of the great things that songwriters can do. And you don't normally associate great songwriting with, martial bands, you know what I mean, generally speaking. But, these guys are doing it. Look, I'm not going to give this anything less than a 10 out of 10, ladies and gentlemen. So I think, right, Rock Professor he's in timeout for his 8.5. We'll bring him back now. All right. Mea culpa, mea maxima
Listen.
culpa.
I'm the rock professor. I'm right. It's in all the books. It's in all the books. I'm just bringing my unbiased, fresh look at these things.
Look, Kubrick lover, 100%. 100%. Guns N' Roses was a band, that Brad has spoken about many, many times. They were a band that guys wanted to be and girls wanted to hang out with. So, I'm going to show some photos, guys.
Yeah, show a couple of photos.
Okay. All right. So, see if I can do this properly. Hold on. So these are some early pics here. That's a pic of Izzy. Now, what's really interesting about some of these pics here, ladies and gentlemen, Brad mentioned it in his intro, but the record company didn't want the band to play live when they were recording this album. They wanted the band to lay low. Been hiding out and laying low. But, they couldn't do that, Brad. They had to get out there and play, and so they were playing under different names for a while. What was the name that they were played under? I thought I made some notes here. Hold on, bro. Hold on. That's them there playing when they shouldn't be playing. Hold on. Can you remember? What they something? Anyway, but they couldn't help themselves. They realised that they just couldn't be cooped up at home, Simon. They couldn't be cooped up in the recording studio. They had to go out and play against their record company's wishes.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, that you go back 15 years and people went out and toured their albums before they recorded them, rather than don't go out, don't play it live, don't do anything. It's 15 years later, that's more the thing, wasn't it? So that it comes as a surprise and is a new and fresh thing to the audience.
So that's a famous poster that we all probably had somewhere in our rooms.
Yeah, 100%. It's a great photo. Slash with his guitar, which we'll talk a little bit more about next week.
Yep.
And Duff's bass as well. Slash.
I thought.
That's the inside cover. Some great photos there.
I'm just going to find the name of that band, bro. That they hold on. I'll go back and have a look in Cantor's book. Hold on. Just give me a second. Give me a second, because we like to make sure that we got some of our facts right, don't we?
While you're doing that, I'll just shout out welcome to Donald Sabo, who's a new name, and Davey Woodward as well. Woodford, who's apparently in Cyprus. So welcome, Davey. Nice to see you. Thanks for joining. Fantastic to see you guys in the chat. That's really cool. Kubrick Lover, 1972. Hi, Kubrick Lover. Hope you're well and doing lots of contributions, which is fantastic. So, yeah, Mikey Mojo. Morning, Mikey. And,
no, I can't find it. I'll have to find it when we're talking, guys. I'll just flick through the photos, though. Anyway, I'm sorry. That's the rock professor mentioned him. That's Wes Arkland.
I thought you were going to say that's the rock professor. No, it isn't.
And we'll talk about him next week, because he is one of the co-writers on a song that he wrote on side 2. And Brad, that's the guy that built Slash's guitar that we're going to talk a little bit more about.
Yep.
I think, and that's the album that Brad mentioned before that they didn't like, that was included in the cassette, the CD, and the record if you got it. And as Brad said too, and that's the sleeve. And not long after this came out, Axel went and got that cross tattooed on his forearm, didn't he? Because if you have a look here, there's some of these pics here where he hasn't got that tattoo.
No tattoos there. Look, has he?
Oh, that's Slash. Sorry,
I'm got none. Slash has got no tattoos there, is he?
I think he's got one on his.
Has he got one on his arm?
Yeah.
One on his right arm. Duff.
That's Duff. Thank you, Brad, for throwing that one through. And also, there's Adler, Popcorn Adler.
Stephen Popcorn Adler. Now, I'm going to boast a little bit here. I've actually met all those members of this band in one way, shape, or form.
Wow.
Well, all of Guns N' Roses?
Yeah, I've met all of them, including Izzy. I gave Izzy a high five as he walked off the stage.
Wow. I've only seen them on stage, and you got to touch them.
I've met Slash a few times. I've met Duff. I met Axel once. I got photos with him and whatnot. And he was kept talking to me all night. There was an after party after a Guns N' Roses gig, and yeah, and Stephen Adler. I was asked to help his manager look after him when he came and toured here last time in Australia. So
nice.
Yeah. So I've got photos of Stephen Adler, and I was basically like this guy looking after him, like this guy.
Where were you? Did you stand like that?
Yeah, I was this guy looking after Stephen Adler. Nice guy. Yeah. Lovely guy.
Yeah.
He checked out my
what's happened to him.
Checked out my tribute band, and he was disappointed because the drummer in the promo photo dressed as Matt Sorrell, not Stephen Adler.
Oh! Ooh, look at that faux pas. Yes.
Anyway, so yeah, but Slash is wonderful. I had Slash sign a few things for me as well, which is great. So
cool. Yeah. Slash has been a big advocate of my friend Chris Buck as well.
Yes.
Chris Buck
Yes.
played with him on stage. Yeah. As Alan Niven, his manager, stuff. I think he's a bit of a guiding influence for Chris.
Yes.
Offers advice and stuff, which is pretty cool. Very cool.
Well, guys, if it's all right with you guys, I'm going to start with Out to Get Me. I'm going to go on with that. And Andrew, you can keep looking for that name of that.
Yep.
If you like. But yeah, I want to keep the show flowing. So the next track on the album is Out to Get Me. Now, this is an aggressive song, and it stems back to Axl's early days. Tough as Nails riff, that intro riff, when it comes in, it's fantastic. And the way that the drums come in behind it, there's so much power. The song has so much swagger and feel about it. And the aggression in Axl's vocal delivery is just intense. Obviously, he put everything into his vocal delivery on this song. His verse vocals are unreal as well. Izzy and Slash, they interweave so well together on this song on guitars. Slash's solo in this one is very unpredictable and on the edge. The first time I heard it, I felt like the solo was going to crash and burn, but it doesn't. It just, the way he plays is remarkable, and I love it. It's got a sleazy feel. It has all those double stops in it. And it, if you like blues, you know what a double stop is on a guitar, and the solo itself changes key, and it adds a little bit more feel to the solo as well because of the way Slash changes key with it. It's got it's just so clever the way he structured his guitar solos, and I don't think he necessarily played the same thing every time when he tracked at the solos. Like, he might have done a few takes, but the structure was there. I think he stuck to a structure, and that key change was something very important in that guitar solo that makes it amazing.
Yep.
There's a breakdown section after the solo where Izzy and Slash play over the accents. It's like it's got this down, 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 down. It's got that sort of vibe happening. And yes, again, it's got a lot of use of unison bends in that as well. Slash overdubs them on there. The song finishes with that, take that one to heart, So I think that's a little socket back to what Axl, went through as a young youth. And I think he's, throwing it back in them, saying, take that one to heart.
Sure.
So the song to me is very aggressive, very meaningful to Axl, and I love it. And I love playing it. 100 out of 10 for me, never a skip.
I'm going to get myself into big trouble with this. But anyway.
No time out.
No.
It's coming.
No. Well, when you're scoring an album, remember, I'm coming this relatively fresh. I'm like, there are the ones that are right up there, and you can't score. I can't score them all the same. But you're allowed, Brad, to score them all the same. It's fine.
Well, unfortunately, mine are always going to be high on this album. That's just
no, that's good. That's not unfortunate. That's fine. Stand behind what you believe in. That's it's clearly, I'm all for important albums to people. I'm really, I'm pleased if everyone's got important albums to them. And we're doing one for you. I think that's fantastic. That's what makes musicians, passionate about music. I think that it's entirely right and proper that you should give everything 100 out of 10. If this is an album that helped form you as a musician, as a person, all those things. I think you absolutely should give it 100 out of 10. That's right and proper that those things should happen. But it's different for me. But that's it's for me. I'd just echo some things. I think that this is quite punky. It's quite sort of confrontational. A bit of paranoia in there, out to get me kind of thing. But that thing about not needing these people in his life. But these people are out to get me, but they're not going to get me kind of thing. That's quite sort of punky punk kind of ethic to it, doesn't it? As a song and stuff. And as you say, those kind of that way they play together, that kind of chords in one speaker and duplicated in the right speaker, massive drum sound as well. I mean, I'll go back to that, and fantastic drumming as well. I think that Mr. Popcorn Adler's doing a fantastic job on the drums. I think that they recorded them fantastically, and it's it really drives them. You've got to have a great rhythm section, haven't you, to be in a great band?
Yeah.
I think it's and I think that the bass playing is also really good as well. Make a general call out to that. It's very melodic. It drives a lot of the songs. Plays some of the melodies, all sorts of stuff going. And he seems to know when to play and when not to. It's really good. I like the call and response with the backing vocals and stuff. That's really cool. Again, I think a bit unsung in the when you think about Guns N' Roses. I think that you don't. I've not heard people talk about the singing, and the harmony singing and the backing vocals and things. I think they really help to make lift the songs. I think they're really important, backing vocals, and helping to lift the songs. And it's not just some guy singing, just on his own kind of thing. They've thought about the parts, they've thought about the arrangements, they've thought about how it's going to go together with a producer. Great guitar solo as well, as you've said, Brad. And fantastic guitar parts as well. And I've said before, it's very kind of dense and very kind of, there's lots of things going on. You bears multiple listening. You get new things out of it when you listen to it multiple times. This is 8.5 out of 10 from me, and never a skip.
That's okay. That's okay.
Andrew.
I said that the guitar solo ending the song before this is one of the most underrated guitar solos that people don't talk about when it comes to Slash. I'm going to say that this intro solo and the riff is one of the most underrated intro songs or riffs too. It's and it's easy to understand why when you consider, especially on side 2, there's some great songs on side 2, which have made a mark in the subconsciousness of 3 generations, certainly 2 generations of listeners. But Brad, for me, there's just something fantastic about this intro solo. I'm going to use a word that you use a lot, and it's a tasty guitar work that I like on this. It's something that's not quite disjointed from the previous songs as far as tones, but he's just doing something something just a little bit different. And I like that. I like the fact that I can hear that. And what a great story, So back in '87, if you were ever framed for anything, or if anyone said, "Hey, what did you do?" or you drank all my beer, and you'd turn around and say, "No, I'm fucking innocent," And you made sure you set it quite high too, so that the person that was listening knew that you were speaking code to them. It was a code lyric, and. Yeah, no, it wasn't me. I'm fucking innocent. Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Either way, Mr. Poppymouth released.
His album's done it.
Yeah. But
that's it. We're going to be banned.
But it's just again, I love the fact that they're just talking about something simple. And Brad mentioned it before. There are some connections back to Axl and where he came from as a young man, and where he was certainly going when he was in LA, and they talk about the ordinary things. Next week when we come on here, ladies and gentlemen, I just found a picture because I just went through that sync book where they've got a bottle of the Nightrain that Brad was mentioning, that they sang about. It was a bottle, that they would go and drink. And also when we talk about a couple of the songs on side 2 that inspired Rocket Queen, so we'll have a picture of that girl as well for you guys to have a look at. And that's what I like, Simon, about this band. I like it when an artist can just talk about the ordinary things, what's happening in their life, what's going on, and write songs about it. Brad, I can't give this song. This album is a perfect album for me. So a perfect album means that every song is either, if it's not a 10, it's a Brad score. But for me, brother, this is a 10 out of 10. Just love it. Everybody's out to get me. Still.
Yeah, still out to get you, mate. Yeah, you've been in the doghouse lately too, so we won't go there. But they're all out to get you. All right, we'll deviate from that. Thanks for that, Andrew. That was good.
Cheers, brother.
So we've got the next song on the album is Mr. Brownstone. That intro, wow. It's just infectious. How can you not get that out of your head? It's so percussive. And this is the first song that we really hear Slash his use of a wah pedal.
Yeah.
He's broken out the crybaby. And there's some amazing wah use on this album in particular, but this song is one. Now, Izzy plays some very cool parts over this, and Slash and Duff keep it thick by using the same chordal progression there. So Izzy plays the intro part of the riff with them, and then he does the lead lick, diddly 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 diddly, does that, while Slash and Duff go dun 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 dun. So when you really pan it, you can really hear the difference in what's happening. And Izzy was such an integral part of this guitar duo lineup. Everyone gives Slash a lot of credit, but Izzy was so good at what he did because he played what was needed for the song. And that, in my opinion, is a wonderful guitar player, someone that knows how to keep it simple and what play for the song. So their guitar parts are intertwined on this song wonderfully. Slash uses that wah pedal fantastically on this song. All those verses where he's using that wah and he's writing that wah. Just he's not using it like and no disrespect to Kurt Hammett, but he's not using it like Kurt Hammett. He's using it as an expression. So it's wonderful the way he used it. And if you go and listen to Band of Gypsies, I think that's where you get Slash's wah playing from, that era of Hendrix, right? He loved it, and I can hear it in his wah playing. So yeah, that that little intertwining part, the use of the wah, and that part where it comes in. He used to do a little, but a little one do so a little got more.
You got
and more.
more and more.
And that's Izzy singing that with Axel. That's definitely Izzy singing that with Axel. And they used to do it live that way as well. He used to sing that with him.
Oh, okay.
So that's like a little duet part where Izzy first gets his voice on the record. The solo in this song is fantastic. Slash bleeds his crybaby wah wah in this song incredibly well. If you haven't noticed by now, Slash is a bluesman. He demonstrates it wonderfully in this solo. It's all blues. There's no trying to play like 80s guitar players here. He was just playing the blues. And, that little key change section where it climbs up and he's playing those pentatonic licks that nearly every guitar plays, from Johnny Winter to Stevie Ray to you name it. They've all done it. And he does that so wonderfully well. The bass, Duff's bass is so punchy. It's like kicking you in the guts. It's unbelievable. And the drums, the Steven Adler, his feel on this song is deceiving. I've played this with a few different drummers, and they always tend to rush it. And like the Appetite drummer in particular, he's got it down pat, because we sat there and said, he said it. You want to rush this song. You want to play it faster, but he's deceivingly playing it back. He's holding it back. So it's very laid back. It's not rushed. And that's the wonderful thing about Steven Adler. He had that feel thing, not comparing him to other drummers at all, but he had his own feel. And I think when Stephen Adler plays drums, you know it's Stephen Adler. It's like when you listen to Keith Moon, you know it's Keith Moon. When you listen to John Bonham, you know it's John Bonham. When Ian Pace, you know it's Ian Pace. Alex Van Halen, you know it's him. You know this is Stephen Adler. Axel's voice is amazing, and I love it. I love the track. It's one of my favorite tracks on it, and all I can say is yowza. I give this one 100 out of 10.
Yowza!
100 out of 10.
Yowza.
100 out of 10. Never skip it. Yowza.
Yeah.
Yowza.
Yeah.
That's how Axel would say it. Yowza.
I'm
Simon,
not
stop me.
attempting that. No, that's fine. This is one of the standout tracks for me on the album for sure. It's it's right up there, isn't it? I think a couple of things struck me that clearly it's about heroin and stuff, and their addiction to heroin, and I think we should acknowledge that. And that the thing that struck me is one, it to me there's a direct lineage with the Rolling Stones dancing with Mr. D. That kind of similar thing, similar vibe to it than to that. But one of the things struck me is that the it's such a great chorus, such a great, it has a pop sensibility to it. You never miss out on a good tune and a good chorus. To nail it home, and I think this is a great chorus, and I think it has a pop sensibility to that chorus that is really cool, and I think it makes it stand out and makes it memorable. Really memorable as a thing. I know it's got a dark subject matter, but lots of songs are have bright, sparkly outsides and a dark center. So I think it's worth saying that as a thing. I agree with you, Ad. Those phase stunted guitars and the drums at the beginning is a epic sound, isn't it? As a thing. And I don't know how many guitars there are on there, but it seems quite a lot. I thought it was phasing rather than wah, but I'll take your thing. Yeah, it still sounds great.
I think there's probably phasing as well on there, Simon, but there's definitely wah if you listen to it. There's wah going on as well.
Yeah. That's fantastic, and a great solo. And as I say, the thing I'd say about these things, it's that the other thing is that they don't outstay their welcome, the songs, do they? This is a 3-minute 46 song. It's not too long. It just does what it's supposed to do, gets off. And it's not stretched out to 7 minutes, 9 minutes. I'm all for a 9-minute song, but it's I'm all for that kind of this is a short, punchy song about this. Bang, we've got these ideas. I think it makes it better, not worse. Those things, less is more, kind of thing. 10 out of 10 from me. Never a skip. Great track.
Well done.
Well, it's for me. There's if you're going to give that, if you're going to give something else, this is a 10. Then something else is not a 10 necessarily to me.
Understand,
Andrew. He's gazing into space, worryingly.
Great song, isn't it? And after reading through that book, Reckless Life, in preparation for the show, I picked up a couple of things that I didn't realise. I knew it was about heroin in relation, I thought, to the band's use, but actually they're interviewing and talking about the band, and they're saying, well, actually, it's not necessarily about our drug use, it's about what we're seeing around us. It's the drug use of people around us, which I thought was really, really interesting for a lot of things, because for 20 years I thought they were singing about themselves. But again, Simon, they're singing about their environment, A little bit later on, I suppose, the song could be applied to them as individuals after this album goes crazy and they start raking in some money, Brad, and they start doing some things that they probably shouldn't do. But they were nevertheless still tasting a bit. And that was okay. Alistair Crowley wrote this great book called Diary of a Drug Fiend, that we've, I'm sure, glanced and read over the years. If you haven't, go and check it out. Great Englishman. And don't let anyone tell you that don't let anyone tell you that he's not, because if he's good enough to get on the cover of Sgt. Pepper's, he's okay. But but what I like about this song, Brad, is that this is Rock's version of their biography of and look, rock and roll's full of songs talking about drugs and drug use and its effects on people, because it's a real thing, isn't it? It's something that's had an effect on a lot of people. And this is what I like about our music. It's not presenting a polished view of the world, is it? You know, the rock professor spoke about a connection with the song to Dancing with Mr. D on Goat's Head Soup. You know, let's go a little bit back in the Rolling Stones catalogue. You know, you'll find me in the needle with my needle and a spoon. You know, the Stones are singing about it as well. You know, so I like the fact that rock and roll is talking about this thing. You know, I watched David Crosby's documentary last night, and David Crosby said the same thing. You know, you get that first bang, that first hit, and you spend the rest of your life trying to chase that first hit. And again, sorry to repeat myself, but you know, these guys are only talking about what they're seeing, what they're experiencing, and for that, I love that. Brad said one great thing too, Yoza, at the end of it. Again, it's, you know, another little code word that, you know, Guns N' Roses fans would use with each other. You know, you knew what that meant. Just hold on for 1 second. You guys have been talking about Adler, Popcorn Adler. I'm glad that we're talking about him, because his double bass drumming is fantastic, and there's a couple of other songs. The next song especially, Brad, highlights Adler's contribution as a drummer. It's a tragedy what happened to him. I think John ZD351 made this great comment earlier on, you know, that when he left the band changed. I think the music changed.
The heartbeat of the band changed, yeah.
Yeah. And then when Izzy left, they became a completely different band. So, look, I always loved this song. Always loved, yeah, you know. What am I going to give? You know, flick the coin. Hold on, I got a coin here. Hold on, ladies and gentlemen. Here's a coin. Heads or tails for a Brad score, 10 out of 10.
Tails.
Call it. Tails.
Tails.
Yes.
It's a Brad score.
Oh, God. My goodness. That was great,
This is
Andrew.
not objective scoring, is it? Tossing a coin's not objective scoring, is it?
I will say this, just to touch on that thing about they became a different band. Just note, and I didn't put this in the intro part of it because I thought, you know, it's not necessary at that point. But they did have songs that they were considering to put on this album: Back Off Bitch, You Could Be Mine, November Rain, and Don't Cry.
Yeah.
And I've got demos of those actually with Adler playing drums on it. It does sound a lot different. But
100%.
Yeah. But in a roundabout way, what happened bringing Matt Sorum into the fold, You Could Be Mine wouldn't sound half as good without Matt Sorum on it, in my opinion. So you can say there's two ways of looking at it. You Could Be Mine sounds insanely aggressive because of Matt Sorum. That's just my opinion. But that what I'm saying is they only wanted to put one ballad on this record, which is in my notes for next week, which was Sweet Child of Mine. They didn't want to put November Rain on, and they felt like You Could Be Mine wasn't finished enough at the time. So, and that obviously those songs became the one song that I reckon they should have put on this record was Shadow of Your Love.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned those songs, because that'll be a good conclusion for the next show. I don't think November Rain would have sounded anywhere like it did on Illusion if they put it on this. You know, exactly. It would have been a completely different song, brother.
I agree that the Illusion era of the band is completely different, and I kind of like that though. I like in or roundabouts way, I would have loved to have had Adler on that album too, which he is. He plays on Civil War.
Yep.
But I kind of like the introduction with Matt Sorum as well. But I've deviated a bit, so I'll get back on track. Sorry, gentlemen.
No problem.
We never deviate on this show, do we, Brad? I mean,
no, we try and keep
never,
that on the tracks.
never happens.
We can't try and keep that train on the tracks. Sometimes it comes off. Okay, so we're ending side G, okay, being the first side, with Paradise City, and my goodness, what a song! That intro is insanely. It's instantly recognizable. It's insanely big. It's straight off the bat. You know, it's as soon as you hear it, you know what song it is. It's the
G,
tone,
C, and F, bro. I love it.
The tone with the chorus effect, you know, with that chorus that he uses on the guitar, sounds incredible. And the way the drums come in, boom, da, boom, da, boom. It's like they got that idea from Queen. I'm sure they did. I'm sure they got that from We Will Rock You. I'm sure they did. I could be forgiven, you know, if I'm incorrect here, but it's unreal. And then the you know, the line, take me down to the Paradise City where the grass is green and the girls are pretty. Oh, won't you please take me home? You know, there was original lyrics for that where, can I say it, Andrew, or not? So
Yeah, why not? Why not?
Take me down to the Paradise City where the girls are fat and they got big titties.
Yeah.
Oh, won't you please take me home?
Yep.
That's what the original lyrics were. And I'm glad they changed it because it was a bit crass and a bit bogan, and now it's very classy in my opinion. So
correct.
They changed that. They used to sometimes sing it in the club days for a joke, you know. Anyway, so the vocals in this song are unreal. The way Axel sings on this is phenomenal. You know, once they do that big intro, and the keyboard comes in, playing the inverted chords behind it, you get that lyrical guitar playing from Slash, that melody. I don't want to flag the channel, but you know the part I'm talking about. That once that comes in, it's like a song within itself, and then you know as soon as that whistle comes in, it's game over. That whistle goes, and then there's that rolling riff that's just tough as nails. And the interesting thing about that is the drums are holding it back wonderfully. They're not pushing that. It's got that feel behind it that's holding that riff back to keep it sounding sleazy. And most drummers would naturally want to play fast through that riff, but Adler decided to play that. It's got remarkable feel. Now, this is one of the songs, Simon and Andrew, that you can tell the song speeds up quite a bit, okay?
Correct.
Because there's obviously a lot of excitement in this song. The guitar playing in this is unreal. The way that the guitars are intertwined really highlights Izzy and Slash's ability to play wonderfully together. The first solo we hear, you hear Slash using like an octave effect on and off. It's not on the whole time. While he sleazes through that like solo, it's not really a solo intended to be, look at my chops. It's the feeling of the song is captured it beautifully in that first guitar solo. Yep. You know, the way that goes through, and then there's that part where they go to the part of the song where it goes so far away, so far away. Slash plays that melody. He was great at doing that. Now, you talk about a guitar player that just knew what to put over things. He could have played what every guitar player would naturally do, is go to those bar chords as well and play the fist. But he decided to put that melody over there, and that's Slash being Slash, in my opinion. He did it with November Rain. He did it with Estranged. He did it with Sweet Child of Mine. He did it with just about every song he thought differently, and that was amazing the way he put that there. I don't think it's enough credit for that little part alone in that So Far Away part. It's phenomenal. And then there's that part leading up to the bit where it goes, "Are you blind?" There's that harmony part that it slashed overdubs there, which is fantastic. It's killer. The chorus is a real sing-along, you know. Everyone can sing that. Take me down to Paradise City where the grass is green and the girls are pretty. Everyone wants to. You can't not want to sing along with that. And, you know, you go see the band live and you can't help but join in. It's amazing. So they wrote this song so the band and the audience would interact, I'm sure. I'm sure they had that in the back of their mind when they were writing the lyrics for this. So basically, when it gets to the end of that section and Axel goes, "Take me home," and Adler does the big that drum fill thing. What happened there is Mike Klink sliced it, put another one in there, and apparently Axel on his first listen back was like, "What the was that?" And Mike Klink was worried then, like, "Oh, what, you know, what's wrong?" He goes, "No, I love that." So they kept it there for that reason. And obviously when they perform it live, it's like a highlight because it builds up that anticipation for that double time section that's coming, which is fantastic. Now that double time section is unbelievable. It highlights some amazing bass playing from Duff. Adler's drumming is just, you know, he's tipping the scales. He's going hard. He's enjoying every minute of that. You can see Adler smiling all the way through that outro part. The guitar parts are great. The vocals, you know, Axel, the way he's singing on that is fantastic. But the highlight for me is Slash on the outro of this. He's demonstrating some guitar chops here, and you know he's not holding back in a lot of this. I can hear, you know, snippets of Jimmy Page. I can hear snippets of Joe Perry. I can hear snippets of like Eric Clapton. I can hear snippets of Jeff Beck, Jimi Hendrix. I can hear snippets of Van Halen. Some of those legato runs and the way he ends that, like it's kind of like the end of the solo for Jump and many sort of things that Van Halen did, Eddie Van Halen did. For me, it's one of the all-time greatest songs ever done, and I have to give this like 1,000, a million out of 100. It's fantastic, and every time I hear this song, you know, the goosebumps happen. It's an amazing song to play as well live, and you know, well done, Guns N' Roses, on this album, but this song in particular is 1,000 out of 10 for me. Never a skip. Simon.
Wow.
Well, yes. What do I add to that, referee?
You don't have to add anything.
No, it's fine. No, I'll echo some things. I think that you're absolutely right. It is one of the classic songs. It's one of the classic rock songs. Never mind just on here, but you know, forever. You can't hear. You hear just the beginning. You know exactly what it is. You know, it's a fantastic song. It's got, as you say, those double time riffs. It's got the, you know, again, I'll go back to what I said in the last song. It's got a fantastic chorus, hasn't it? This chorus, you sing along, you know, wherever else it does it. That chorus is absolutely, you know, a major hook, isn't it? A major hook, you know, that makes it the song unforgettable. Just those three chords, that standard three chords. I think some interesting stuff that I noticed was that the chorus is quite upbeat and quite sort of, you know, take me down to the Paradise City, but the verses are not. The verses are quite dark, actually. I thought that, you know, and I think there's you know, that contrast that have been in lots of songs. You know, that contrast between the verses and the chorus, and not necessarily, you know, they juxtapose each other rather than complement each other in a way. I also think there's a thing about, you know, the first song is Welcome to the Jungle on this side, and the last song is Paradise City. This kind of bookends the two experiences of Los Angeles, I guess. As a thing, slightly different. They have, as I say, the verses have a bit more of the Welcome to the Jungle bit in them than the chorus does, which is a bit more of the sort of upbeat, idealized bit, isn't it? As a thing, but you know, it is one of the great rock songs. Absolutely is, unmistakable, unique. You don't need to play more than half a bar of it to know what it is. And there's no greater compliment than that. I don't think, that it has a life of its own. It's 100 out of 10, and it's, never ever a skip. It's one of the great songs. Andrew.
I'm not going to add much, ladies and gentlemen, to what my co-hosts have said. Slash is on record saying that it's his favourite Guns N' Roses song, and rightly so. We mentioned before, ladies and gentlemen, about the video, correctly, and the rock professor pointed out that the people that they were performing to wasn't their crowd, wasn't their audience. This was a band when they were filming that video they weren't even in the top 20. Brad, they weren't a top 50 act, and then. So you got to put that into perspective, and it kind of catches some kind of fire of the imagination, doesn't it, when you sort of put these dots together, Simon, and look back. I didn't know at the time that these guys weren't playing to their own audience, but that didn't matter. Sometimes when you're writing rock and roll, you never let the truth get in the way of a good story, and Guns N' Roses is a band that certainly doesn't like telling the truth all the time. Brad, you've already mentioned it. Once that whistle goes, as John said, it's not halftime. It's not time for oranges. It's for kickoff. It's like, cup final. And, that interplay, whether the interplay is between Izzy and Slash, I don't know, or if it's, and Brad already just explained it, that it's the layering of Slash's guitars on the song, which gives it all those different textures that Brad so eloquently, outlined for you, of all his influences. He's bringing forward and layering it into the song. It's remarkable. Again, you got to remember this guy, 23 at the time? 22, 20, not even 25. Nobody knows anything until they're over 25. So,
said somebody more than 25, hopefully. Yes.
So, you kind of sort of got to stand back, Simon, and go, wow, wow. And this song does it for me. And Brad, you mentioned it. You've got right up until this song, you've got the bass. You've got Duff just playing the chords. He's not doing anything exceptional. And this is where he kicks out a little run, and Brad pointed that out, Duff's got his own, and then he's sort of building up because there's a couple of songs on side 2 where he's just blowing it away with the bass. So again, I like that. This is where the last song where Duff is coming out and talking about himself as a musician. I like that. They didn't reveal it all, even though the first song gave you an opening of where this band's going to go. And we spoke about Adler's double bass drumming, didn't we? And Brad just eloquently again said it. Doom, 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 doom. Oh, it's just, Simon, it's fantastic, isn't it? We love drummers. We love drummers on this show. You said it. If you don't have a rhythm section in your band, you ain't got rock and roll.
That's right. 100%.
And this skinny guy with this, wild mane of blonde hair and this big smile.
Yeah.
And and he made sure that he has his drums set so he can look and interact with the audience. He talks about it in his book. I don't want to be buried. I want to see what's going on, and he, wow. I just, Brad, I'm going to go on the record and I'm going to say, it's an iconic double bass drum sound on the song, and it was never repeated or replicated by those that followed him. Different band. It was a different band after these guys left. We've already discussed that. And that's not necessarily a bad thing because, another band that we follow heavily on this channel, Van Halen, two different bands too, aren't they? So that's not a bad thing. This song is a cracker. It's probably my third favourite song on the album. Side 2's got two other songs which will be a fight between number 1 and number 2, but boy, this is a classic rock and roll song, Brad. It's my pick. It's my pick of side 1.
Yes.
Brad Scott.
Clearly.
Yeah.
Pick of side 1. Pick of side 1, hands down. Good point, Simon, about Welcome to the Jungle, Paradise City. Good point.
That's why I'm the rock professor.
I think when you said that, it made perfect sense. That just didn't happen by accident.
That's bookends, isn't it? Good.
Yeah.
You know me. I'm all about the programming.
Well, gentlemen, that's side G.
Side G, we're back.
Good work.
We're back, ladies and gentlemen, with side 2 next week. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, please do. I'm forgetting to ask you guys to subscribe at the beginning of our shows. Please share our channel. We've picked up since the Jeff Beck show, guys, we've picked up about 40 subscribers since the Jeff Beck show. So,
thank you so much.
We really appreciate that. We'll have a chat and see what Carl's doing next week.
Fettling his internet. Spanners.
We'll give him an invite, Brad and Simon, to come on part 2. We'll give him another crack. He's a very dear friend of ours. We love him. We love him.
Tell him to go to his local coffee shop where there's some decent Wi-Fi and get a pair of headphones that plug in.
That's a good point. Go to bloody McDonald's. Go to McDonald's, bro, and sit there.
Get a coffee. Get a pair of headphones with wires. Oh dear. He wouldn't be Carl if it wasn't like that, would he?
Guys, I know that he would be pissed off that he couldn't have joined us, because him and I have spoken about this album many times. He's got some wonderful insights. So yeah, we'll see what we can do. Brad, your introduction, outstanding rock professor, your contribution, the insights. My gosh, second show in on the channel. Second show in on the channel for the year.
Yes.
I'm not banned then. I'm not banned.
No.
Okay, we had about 25, 28 people at one stage watching. We always appreciate you guys.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we're going to cruise because we've got food to eat. We've got dogs to walk. I'm going to say thank you very much for hanging out with us. Brad and Rock Professor, thank you for your contribution, and everybody in the chat. The Rock Professor is going to do a quick shout out to you guys. Brad, do you want to have the last word before the Rock Professor says, I am saying goodbye to everybody?
Just thank you for allowing me to do the intro on this one, Andrew, and Simon and Andrew. It's been a great second show, and to everyone in the chat, thanks for joining us. And just want to back up what Andrew said. Please subscribe if you love what we do here, and be part of the chat and be part of the happenings on the show. It's fun.
Yeah.
We try to get up to a little bit of mischief here without getting up to too much. But, on a show like Guns N' Roses, it's hard to not stop Andrew from swearing. So
off the leash. Guns N' Roses or Andrew is off the leash.
Because if you knew Andrew like we do, he's got a potty mouth. Thank you.
Unleashed.
Thank you for all the subscriptions, and thank you for everyone joining us in the chat. Simon.
Fantastic. Yes, indeed. Yes. I like that. Andrew Unleashed. So thanks to John ZD351. Thanks, John. Good to see you as always. Great comments. Great stuff going on. Jonas Hallberg. Morning, Jonas. Kubrick Lover. Nice to see you, Kubrick Lover. Greg Roberts Tune. Great stuff. Ellen Toll. Thanks, Ellen, for being a great supporter of the channel. Fantastic.
Thank you, Alan.
Loads of comments. Mikey Mojo. Mikey, thanks for joining. Good to see you. Alicia Castillo. I hope I got the name relatively right. Nice to see you. Welcome to the channel. Not seen your name before. So fantastic to see you. I hope you enjoyed it. Come back next week when we're doing the R side. Charmaine Taylor. Nice to see you, Charmaine.
Thank you,
Hope you're
Charmaine.
well. Yeah, we've got Hugh Caldwell as well. Hugh as ever. Thanks, Hugh, for joining.
Thank you, brother.
We had further up. We had Johnny Bean. We had Quentin. Morning, Quentin. Donald Sabo. Morning, Donald. Hope I'm going to miss anybody. But we had Arvin as well and Nelson Rodriguez. Nice to see you guys. Yeah, good to see you guys. Robert Ranford as well. Nice to see you, Robert, as well. Thanks for joining. I think I got right up the top. I think hopefully that's everybody. Hope I Christopher, Live Sour. Nice to see you, Christopher. Thanks for joining. Chris. Yeah. I think that's probably everybody that we had. Yeah, I'm at the top. So thanks to everyone who joined. Great to see you. And yeah, please subscribe if you like what we're doing. And we'll see you next week for Side R. Take care. Have a good week, guys. And Mark Dillon. Nice to see you, Mark. Take care.
Oh, Mark. Been a while. Yeah, it's been a while since we've seen Mark.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.